What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. So this is a Shadow game testing video. Now normally I start these off a little bit differently, but the reason why we're doing it like this is because when I played the beta, when others had played the beta, and we talked about this in the podcast, nobody with Shadow, not Shadow Boost, Infinite, Ultra, whatever, could play Avengers. It would not run. It would not work. You could boot it, you could start it, but as soon as you would try to play, the CPU would be 100% maxed out no matter which tier you were on, and the game would stop, stutter, freeze, have huge audio issues and all that. So even though I released gameplay test on other systems for the beta that ran just fine, I did not release a gameplay test for Shadow during the beta because I did not feel like that was going to be fair to Shadow, and it wasn't going to be fair to the Avengers game, to the developers either. So I decided to wait till launch day to check it out and see if it was going to be playable on Shadow. Now I have the Shadow Boost tier. And now my understanding is from talking to also Mark Watts, who was live streaming this, he's able to get the game to run as well on his highest tier Shadow. So there's definitely some optimization that happened for the full release. It's definitely helped the game. There are still some stutters, freezes, and audio issues, some 100% CPU usage, and things like that going on in this game. We do know that Shadow on all tiers, especially the boost tier though, does have a CPU bottleneck. Everybody's becoming more than aware that that's an issue. It's still a great system. I still highly recommend Shadow when you're able to get it, and I'm sure they'll be upgrading CPUs and GPUs down the line once they get caught up. But with a game like this, it was a combination of that bottleneck CPU and the horrible optimization of the game that basically made it a completely unplayable experience on Shadow. Now here we are on launch day, and things are a little bit different. Let's move over to some gameplay. I'm going to show you some 1440p, some 1080p. We're going to talk about what we're seeing, and I'll explain some things to you there. But yes, Avengers is definitely now playable on Shadow. Should be playable on all three of the tiers. Even if there are some issues here and there, you should be able to do that now. So let's jump into the gameplay and check out what we've got going on. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is just show you the settings real quick. We're going to be 1440p to start off with, and we are on the high preset. The reason it says custom is the only thing I did was turn off motion blur. You guys are probably familiar by now. Not only am I not a big fan of it, but I usually turn it off for testing. So, and no matter what you're going to set your settings to, that's not going to have a lot to do with the CPU issues that we have been talking about here. So we are just going to go with high 1440p. Later on in the video, we're going to switch to 1080p, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and I'll tell you why we want to do that. So the first thing that indicated to me here that we might still have a problem, but fortunately nothing like what we had in the beta, was right here when we first landed right in the beginning of the game. And we're not going to stay here long. Bring up MSI Afterburner here, and you can see still hitting that 100% CPU usage, and of course the GPU is maxing out, which is just fine. You see some stutters here and here, a little bit of audio issue, but this is nothing like what it was in the beta. It was completely an unplayable experience. It would freeze up for seconds at a time at least. You would have constant audio issues and things like that. So I knew things were better optimized already just from this, but it still has its issues. However, at least now it is a completely playable experience at 1080p and 1440p. At 4K, you might even do better. I'm not really sure. I didn't test that out. But the lower you go on the resolution, the less hard the GPU is going to have to work, and the harder the CPU is going to get hit. So here we are again, 100%, but at least we didn't get the stutters right here. So another area that was a huge problem in the beta was right here in the beginning. When we take off with Iron Man and we go to do battle with Thor here, it was just basically that's where I had to quit the beta. There was no way to do the combat. There was no way to play the game at all. Fortunately, now with the full release, even though that CPU optimization is still an issue, yes, the CPU bottleneck on Shadow Boost is still an issue, the game itself is at least now playable and looks amazing. You're still going to experience some stutters and freezes every now and then. You're still going to experience some audio lagging out on you every now and then. But they might be able to fix those issues with further patches in the future. for these systems. So yes, everyone's familiar. Shadow, especially the boost package, is getting a bit of a CPU bottleneck, especially as they are aging. But what I saw in the beta for this game just didn't make sense. I knew it was an optimization on the game side because even my Ryzen 4500U integrated graphics laptop can play this game without any stutters, albeit at 30 or less FPS at 720p. So check out, I'm going to cut through this video a little bit. Check out some more of this gameplay here just so you can see how it's running on Shadow at 1440p.
We got civilians trapped behind those barricades. Understood. Stay behind me. I will deal with them.
We got you, Thor.
This should be fun.
Thor, who are we dealing with here?
They did not introduce themselves.
Hang on, those guns are shield issue. I'll get Commander Hill on the line.
Cap, they picked today for a reason.
Agreed, Bruce. I'm staying with the Chimera until we figure out what's going on.
Help me, please.
Are you hurt?
No, just stuck.
Lucky for you, I am mighty.
Thank you, Thor.
Get to safety.
Thor, thank you.
Stay down. Help is on the way.
Target.
Fire!
Whoa, Thunder God. Who said you could have all the fun? Gotta admit it, that was pretty impressive.
You surprised?
Ooh, cocky. I like that. Incoming!
Shields. Quick! It's not over, Stark!
Hey, get back here! Just got confirmation. Shield convoy was hijacked this morning.
This from one of Fury's morning briefs I never read? Come on, Tony, those are important. Okay, whatever. Pulsar rockets. Glad Fury kept all my best tech in one place.
Those rockets are doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, I know. I built the damn things.
Cap, we should secure the Terrigen crystal if that thing gets hit.
Already on it. Tarleton's heading down to the reactor chamber now.
On my signal, go.
Tony, Thor, got some of those flyers on me.
Annoying little guys, aren't they? On my way.
that today was gonna be with fan clubs and funnel cakes.
Focus, Tony.
Avengers, talk to me.
Those tanks are doing a number on the bridge. They could fall if we don't take them out.
Hurry up, big guy. It can't take much more punishment. Where's Big Green?
I got eyes on him. Hulk, bringing in the Quinjet for a landing.
Shit!
All right, guys, so we're going to jump in here with Cap. I've got this paused. We're going to change. The only change we're going to make is our resolution. So I want to go down to 1080p. Now watch our CPU. What's going to happen here is we're going to give the GPU a little bit of breathing room with this resolution, which means the CPU is needing to work a little bit harder, and it is affecting the FPS that you can get here. So this lowering this resolution is actually going to push the CPU even further. So now we're going to go from 55, 65 right here, right back into the 90s and 100. And the reason for that, like I just said, you lower the resolution, that takes some work off the GPU. You can see it now going down to 95, 97, 93, 92. It won't max out now as much because the CPU's having to work that much harder now because the CPU is not getting hit as hard. I put this back to 1440p or even 4K. The video card, the GPU is going to get hit harder, and the CPU will then get some breathing room. So that's what's going on with this, and that's why you're going to see that, and that's why you'll see a lot more 100% here at 1080p and a little bit less usage on the GPU. So, but the point being, you can still play at 1080p or 1440p and not experience game stopping stutters and audio lag that will just make it unplayable. Yes, you're still going to run into those issues from time to time, but they're not anything like they were in the beta. Now, I do believe these numbers I'm seeing, the GPU usage, CPU usage, all that, I believe that's still fairly accurate. I've had great success with testing Shadow, and I'm used to doing these tests for a very long time. But what's happening is the game has been optimized to deal with this issue much better than the beta version. So the game's able to do what it needs to do to handle these issues with the CPU, whether I'm in 1440p or 1080p, and try to minimize those lag spikes, the audio spikes, and just the unplayability that can happen. And I know that's what's going on because I have an AMD FX 8320 with a 1050 Ti that I can play this game on just fine. That CPU runs at 100% the entire time. It never really takes a break, but yet I get almost no stutters or lag because the game has now been optimized to deal with that issue. Just because you hit 100% CPU use, it should not mean you're necessarily at an unplayable situation.
Avengers, if you can hear me, the convoy is transporting a highly lethal sonic disruptor bomb. Our enemies intended to
So
detonate it
what we're going to
within
do
the
here
city.
now is switch over. Now I'm talking a lot more in this video than I normally would because this was a game that gave us a lot of issues on Shadow, and I want to explain everything that's going on here. So the last thing we're going to do here is this scene right after that, when you start off from the apartment here, we're going to switch it back over to 1440p in a nighttime scene here, and we'll just do a quick run through so you can see how it's running, and you can see that it's fairly consistent. Now we're going to go back up to 99%, 100% on the GPU, and then we're going to give that CPU a little bit of breathing room now because we're doing that. So it should run just fine here. You will notice one or two little audio lags, but other than that, everything was running pretty well.
Flying toasters are everywhere. Thanks for the lift. There we go.
Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this video. A lot more explanation than normally. Usually I just let you check out the gameplay, but I want to explain everything going on here with this game. So definitely playable now. The beta was horrible. Optimization is much better now that the game has released, and you can play it on Shadow just fine. So thanks a lot for coming to check out this video, guys. I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Ring the notification bell. Give a thumbs up. Leave me your comment down below and all that kind of good stuff. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.